during World War II, a group of courageous and brave airmen embarked on a perilous mission amidst the chaos of war. The 527th Bomb Squadron, part of the 379th Bomb Group, under the banner of the mighty 8th Air Force, soared into the skies on a daring quest. The mission was to prepare for Operation Overlord by dealing a decisive blow to the Luftwaffe. As the formation approached ground targets in Germany, the sky was filled with the sound of 186 B-17 bombers and 123 P-47 Thunderbolt fighters. Among them was B-17G 4229896, fondly known as Tondelayo. Suddenly, German fighters swarmed the skies and launched a vicious attack, firing upon Tondelayo repeatedly. Chaos and destruction reigned supreme, but for all the turmoil, one man stood tall. Staff Sergeant Michael Arooth, Tondelayo's tail gunner, displayed unparalleled bravery and skill as he downed 3 enemy aircraft. But despite the incredible feats of Sergeant Arooth, the battle took its toll on the bomber, forcing most of the crew to abandon ship. Injured and deprived of oxygen, Arooth refused to give up as he valiantly defended his aircraft, while his own fate hung in the balance. A picture caption. As early as 1934, the United States Army Air Corps issued a request for proposal for a new multi-engine bomber to replace the Martin B-10. The Air Corps was in need of a bomber that could reinforce the air forces in Hawaii, Panama, and Alaska. It was required to carry a useful bomb load at an altitude of 10,000 feet for 10 hours at a top speed of at least 200 miles per hour. Additionally, a range of 2,000 miles was desirable but not required, as was a speed of 250 miles per hour. 3 companies submitted proposals: the Boeing Model 299, the Douglas DB-1, and the Martin Model 146, which then underwent a fly-off at the Wilbur Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio. The Boeing Model 299 combined features of the company's experimental XB-15 bomber and 247 transport. The B-17's armament consisted of 5 30-caliber machine guns with a payload of up to 4,800 pounds of bombs on 2 racks in the bomb bay behind the cockpit. The power plant consisted of 4 Pratt & Whitney R-1690 Hornet radial engines, each producing 750 horsepower at 7,000 feet. A day before its first flight, Richard Williams, a reporter for the Seattle Times, unwittingly coined the aircraft's famous name when he described it as a, quote, 15-ton flying fortress in a picture caption. Without hesitation, Boeing had Flying Fortress trademarked for use. The first flight of the Model 299 was on July 28, 1935, with Boeing's chief test pilot Leslie Tower at the controls. The model's performance was superior to its competitors, making it the clear winner. However, tragedy soon struck. A strategic weapon. Major General Frank Maxwell Andrews of the GHQ Air Force believed that the capabilities of large 4-engined aircraft exceeded those of shorter-range twin-engine aircraft. Therefore, he thought the B-17 was better suited to the emerging U.S. Army Air Corps doctrine. His view was shared by procurement officers, and even before the competition had finished, they suggested purchasing 65 B-17s straight away. However, during a flight test on October 30th, 1935, that was intended to determine the rate of climb and service ceiling, the aircraft stalled and spun into the ground soon after takeoff, bursting into flames. The post-accident investigations determined that the control surface gust lock had not been released. As a result, the crashed Model 299 could not complete the evaluation and was consequently disqualified from the competition. Nevertheless, the Air Corps remained enthusiastic about the aircraft's potential. Although Boeing's prototype outperformed the 2 other entries, the crash led to the loss of the initial 200-bomber contract, and the Douglas B-18 Bolo was chosen instead. However, the Air Corps recognized that the B-17 had more to offer and ordered 13 more for further evaluation. In the words of author Jeff Ethel, quote, "Though the crash of the prototype 299 in 1935 had almost wiped out Boeing, now it was seen as a boon. Instead of building models based on experimental engineering, Boeing had been hard at work developing their bomber and now had versions ready for production far better than would have been possible otherwise. One of the most significant weapons of World War II would be ready, but only by a hair." After its introduction to service in 1938, the B-17 underwent numerous design improvements. From its inception, the Air Service recognized and promoted the aircraft as a strategic weapon. Relatively fast and high-flying for a bomber of its era, the B-17 was primarily deployed in the European theater of World War II. In fact, it would drop more bombs than any other aircraft during the conflict. With remarkably heavy defensive armament at the expense of bomb load, it would also serve as a transport, anti-submarine aircraft, drone controller, and search and rescue aircraft. But the B-17's most notable feature was its toughness, as stories of severely damaged B-17s safely returning to base became legendary, especially the impossibly lucky Tondelayo. Extraordinary heroism. On July 30th, 1943, the 527th Bomb Squadron, 379th Bomb Group, belonging to the mighty 8th Air Force, went on a daring mission to bomb enemy ground targets in Germany. As they approached the German city of Kassel, 186 B-17 bombers and 123 P-47 Thunderbolt fighters flew in a massive formation that filled the sky. Among these valiant aircraft was the legendary Tondelayo. However, the enemy was ready to put up a fight. German fighter aircraft swarmed the skies and began firing on Tondelayo, hitting it repeatedly. Amidst the chaos and destruction, Staff Sergeant Michael Arooth, Tondelayo's tail gunner, rose to the occasion with unparalleled bravery and skill, managing to down 3 enemy aircraft. Although his bomber endured significant punishment and most of his crewmates had bailed out, Sergeant Arooth refused to give up, even after being injured by enemy shelling. With just one remaining gun, he fought off enemy attacks and skillfully repaired his jammed gun to down his 4th enemy. Despite suffering from a broken oxygen supply line, a shattered and bleeding leg, and a malfunctioning interphone system, Sergeant Arooth remained steadfast and continued to defend his aircraft and crew with his one good gun. In the end, his heroism saved Tondelayo, which returned home safely, revealing that Arooth and his aircraft had been protected by a miracle. A defensive box. Unlike fighter pilots, individual bomber gunners were not officially credited for their heroic shootdowns. This was partly due to policy, as the Army wanted to instill in each gunner a sense of belonging to a larger crew and encourage them to act as a cohesive team rather than as individuals. But for the most part, practical considerations played a significant role in this decision. In a typical B-17 defensive box formation, each enemy fighter was subjected to a barrage of fire from as many as a dozen gunners firing simultaneously. Therefore, even if it was confirmed that an enemy had indeed been destroyed, it was nearly impossible to determine which gunner's shots had brought it down. Despite these limitations, some bomber gunners kept an unofficial tally of enemies they had shot down, and a few individuals were even accorded official recognition, though few were formally credited as an air ace. Staff Sergeant Arooth was one of the exceptions. He miraculously survived the war, continued to serve his country in the armed forces until 1962, and earned 2 air medals, the Purple Heart, and numerous other decorations. His Distinguished Service Cross citation highlighted his, quote, extraordinary heroism, coolness, and skill. Remarkably, his official record as a gunner, the most remarkable in Air Force history, comprised the downing of at least 19 enemy aircraft on only 14 missions, though it was believed he had shot down more than 20 enemy aircraft. Moreover, Arooth was selected as a pallbearer at the ceremonies of the burial of the unknown soldier of World War II at Arlington National Cemetery in 1958. For now. The B-17, the third most produced bomber of all time, was a formidable aircraft that played a pivotal role in shaping the outcome of World War II. As such, the combination of an extraordinary airman and the sturdy product of American aviation directly led to an auspicious outcome for Tondelayo. However, there was more to the story. When Tondelayo returned to its base, the mechanics were left in utter shock when they discovered that the fuel tanks had been hit by a staggering 11 20mm explosive projectiles, none of which had detonated. The mystery deepened when gunsmiths found that all the shells were empty except for one, which contained a rolled-up piece of paper with a message written in Czech. When translated, the message read, quote, "This is all we can do for you now." It turned out that an unnamed Czech prisoner, enslaved by the Germans, had managed to sabotage the manufacture of these very projectiles and saved several lives in the process. Despite facing unimaginable cruelty, these courageous workers fought back against the Nazis in countless ways, even at the risk of their own lives. Although the identity of the anonymous hero remains a mystery, Their actions continue to inspire the best of the human race. Thank you for watching our video. If you're looking for more riveting experiences, our Dark Documentaries channels offer you a treasure trove, sure to leave you on the edge of your seat. Don't hesitate to subscribe and visit our other channels, where you'll discover even more awe-inspiring stories. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell and give us a thumbs up, and stay tuned for more.